Welcome to the MJSA podcast. I'm joined today by a Belgian-based visual artist and jeweler and silversmith and metalsmith, David Huycke. He's best known for his innovative approach to metalwork, specifically the use of granulation techniques in larger sculptural silverware. And actually, we have some of his work and part of his paper that was featured in the Santa Fe Symposium in 2022, featured in the May issue of MJSA Journal. So, David, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Well, pleasure. Thank you.
I know you studied jewelry and silversmithing, and I know you've done work and you do work in different mediums. How did you get started in the beginning? Like, what led you into jewelry and silver/metalsmithing, that type of thing?
Well, I started studying jewelry after my high school. I started at 18. And in my home, my mother, she was dealing with antique jewelry. So I saw all those pieces like constantly on the table when I was at home. So that attracted me enormous. Also, I was always like doing things with my hands. So studying jewelry in an academic course was something I was very attracted to. And the course was focused on jewelry, and especially the first 3 years, I only did these small things. But then later on, we had a guest professor who introduced us to silversmithing, hammering, raising cups and bowls and things like that. And I was enormously attracted to that. Immediately, the larger work, a little bit more physical work. I just fell in love with it. Also with the tools. The hammers, the stakes, were beautiful things. Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about your when you're coming up with ideas, like your creative process now? Like, how do you develop ideas? How do you decide to work on the things that you typically work on? Like, sources of inspiration for you now?
Yeah. A creative process is chaotic. It's nothing linear. You can't say I'm starting here and it's going to there. In general, there are three things that I'm very interested in. First is cosmic things like night and day, the planets, atoms, clouds, the moon, the sun, those things. I'm very attracted to that. And then secondly, it's nature. I look at nature, for example, how things grow, how things move in nature, or how things get organized, like a flock of birds, schools of fishes. Also in the plant world, such as the core, for example, of a sunflower, how all these seeds are organized. And I mean, these things are you can see them in my work very obviously. And then second, I'm interested in techniques. So every time I make something, I need to have something to challenge myself, like a technical challenge. So I started off with making very simple things because actually as a silversmith, I taught myself more or less, except for that 1 year at school. So I'm kind of building up that challenge every time, a little bit more complex or a little bit more difficult.
So is there a line for you between the art, like the creative process and the technique process? Or like, I think, as you said, it's all kind of blended together. You're obviously using those techniques and developing them. Do they probably sometimes, I would imagine, inspire some of your ideas or some of the art itself?
Yeah, of course. In the case of granulation, so granulation is a technique where I've been working with for 20 years already. And I like to use techniques that have something to express, that have a kind of expressive potential. And to give you an example with granulation, when you have two spheres, two very little elements, and when you put them together and you fuse them, they all of a sudden, they kind of go over into each other. If you keep on heating, they become one again. And that's a very sensual movement that you can do with metal and a flame. And it are these things that inspire me to go deeper into the technique or use that idea than even in another technique.
So where did the initial, specific inspiration for working and starting to experiment with granulation come from? What got you started in that?
Well, actually, I started in '96 already, and there was the start was a competition or an exhibition organized by the German Association of Goldsmiths Art in Hanau, Germany. And they invited jewelry designers, silversmiths, metal workers to send something in, which is new approach to granulation, to the old technique. And that was my first encounter with the technique. So I started reading about it and experimenting. And at that time, I was mainly making bowls, simple bowls, dishes and bowls. And I thought, well, I'm going to make a bowl with granulation, just with the spheres, not knowing that that was already something new. Well, I tried and I made a few things and sent them in, and they were in the exhibition. And that was actually the start of this whole journey.
That's interesting. Were there during the experimentation phase, I'm sure, were there things that were, I mean, did you experiment with how to actually to create the structure first and then sort of start to build them at that point, trying to work structurally with granulation? It was just
from different angles I tried, but I very quickly realized that the sphere, when you put it somewhere, it always rolls away. So you need actually a concave thing where they all roll to the bottom. Right. They all go down, and then they all touch each other. And then at some point, it was when I found the right way to add the copper, because you need copper for this to make it the connection through granulation. When I found the right way to do that and the right flame, making the connections was quite easy.
So, looking at some of the pieces that the projects that we featured, that we have in the magazine, are you sort of working where, I was wondering if are you working where you're experimenting sometimes on new techniques and then going and creating something, or are both things sort of happening at the same time? Are you kind of like testing things out technique wise and method wise, and then saying, okay, now I'm going to make something, or does it sort of happen at the same time?
Both. It's hard to say it's one way or the other. It depends. Sometimes mistakes inspire me to do something differently, or something that I think, oh, maybe I should try this, and things work out from the first time sometimes, and then I build something with it. So it's hard to say I'm working according to a certain plan. So in the initial phase, of course, going to an object, there's a lot of planning in advance, because it takes a lot of time to build these things. And then there's some coincidence going on, but not that much anymore.
Obviously, granulation is something that you're known for and that you've worked on. What, looking forward, like, is it, maybe you don't know specifically, it's something that you need to come up with some ideas, but what, do you have any sense of future projects or things that you're planning on doing in the future, or ways that you want to continue to advance it? Because I think you've already advanced the technique and the style, and using it, for structure instead of just decorative purposes. That was certainly one big step. But what does the future look like, do you think? Or maybe you don't know?
Right now, I'm working on other things. I'm working with spheres, and I'm working with the organization of spheres. I'm building clouds now, with spheres of like 4 centimeter. So, and I'm soldering these things, hammering and soldering these things together. So it's not with granulation, but in a way it's also about granulation, and it's definitely the granulation, and my experience there has certainly influenced on these kind of works. And maybe one day I will do granulation again. Depends also on my time depends on how I feel in the studio, but right now I'm not working with it.
Right. But like you said, it does, it's in some way connected. It all sort of grows out of the same seeds of inspiration, it sounds like. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for featuring my work in the magazine and on the website. I'm so much looking forward to see.